I'm going to open the conference now, and I start that, as always, with a big welcome to all of you for being here at this exciting time. We planned it well, and we're going to be going over some of the potential, not only the causes, how we got to where we are, but the solutions. Now, as you know, I'm Stephen Zarlenga, director, co-founder of the American Monetary Institute, author of the book, The Lost Science of Money, which is on the back table there. Also author of the Refutation of Menger's Theory of the Origin of Money, which is the basis of the Austrian School of Economics. And it was the first paper of the American Monetary Institute, and we were really called upon to refute it because of the errors in it, the damage that it was doing, the fact that it's the basis of the Austrian school and much other economic thought. And I'll be talking about that in my talk on Saturday. For now, to start with, I want to go through some of the materials that you have in your kits to focus on them. An excellent short piece, Money from Thin Air, by James Robertson. James Robertson, one of the really advanced monetary thinkers in the United Kingdom. And this is a very basic explanation, very short, front and back. James is going to be honored at the end of our conference here today on Saturday, and I would appreciate it if you'd read that at some point in time so that you're familiar with his thinking and his work. In each kit, there's a conference evaluation form. We'd really like you to fill that out, and that'll help us in planning future conferences. There's a supporting member form. We're a publicly supported charitable trust, so we're always in fundraising mode, and a number of you have been helping us significantly, and we invite more help. You have a bumper sticker. We have green and white. One of these will fit virtually any color, and if it doesn't fit your car, you can exchange it for another color here. And there are more that will be at the back, which we are selling at very reasonable prices. You have the schedule, of course, called Greening the Dollar, which I'm going to refer to in the opening here. Very important development. And you've got an article, a front page article in The Nation, which we'll refer to by William Grider. Took a major step forward. It's a copy of the American Monetary Act, which is not the very final edition that we're working on now, but it's the next to the last to it, and there's plenty of material in there for you. And that's basically what you have in the kit. Now, we've got materials at the back. We've got various books. These are books of people that we know, people whose research we trust and who have done the work. And they're available back there. I want to just highlight them for you. For the Common Good by Herman Daly. This is something everybody should have. And it's the appendix, the monetary appendix. It's only in volume 2. It's only in the second edition. They didn't put it in. It was done after the first edition. Second edition is out of print. That's the only place you can get this. And Doug has them priced there. Highly recommended. This you hear a lot about, but you don't see it ever. This is the facts put out by the Committee on Banking and Currency from the 88th Congress, 1964, and well worth having for people doing substantial research. We have something called Modern Money Mechanics. Now, this again went out of Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, beginning I think in 61 or 64. They continued reprinting this until 1994 or 5. The fact that this exists is thanks to our video man and chapter leader on the Northwest Coast, Bob Petit, who found it, reprinted it, now it's on the internet. This is important, and we'll use material from that. This is back there also. It's one of the initial printings of the Chicago Plan idea that came out of the University of Chicago in the Great Depression. If you're a serious monetary researcher, you have to read that. Also at the back is my paper on this. If Doug, if you could bring me a copy of that, it's called the Chicago Plan Talk. You can get that there. It analyzes this, I think it's on the far right, in terms of what it did and comparing it to the American Monetary Act. This is based in part on this. 2/3 of what we do here is derived in part, not entirely, from this. This goes further. We've advanced substantially with this, the American Monetary Act. We began these meetings in September of 2005 because we could see the problem with our money system. And we knew basically where it was likely to lead. We could not tell exactly when it would get to the current spot or what it would take to make that happen, but we could tell that it was coming, that this was coming. And I would characterize where we are now as level 1 of this financial crisis. Level 0 was when the population were hurting but could do nothing about it. Level 1 is where the perpetrators themselves, those responsible for the trouble, are in trouble themselves. The problem cannot be swept under the rug, cannot be denied, hidden, ignored. The evildoers themselves, that's not a word you'll hear used often, evil. Not just our hardworking people are in trouble and they intend to use their political know-how, their connections, their powers of manipulation to force the rest of us to pay for their problems. Now, what I mean by evil, one form of that is the conscious blocking of humanity from developing to its best destiny or potential. That's just one form, and that's an important form. Other forms of it derive from mental illness as well. It can take the form of physical force or fraud, or, as in the case of monetary systems, it's a combination of both force and fraud. Very sophisticated combination. The broad name that I give to that process is usury. And in doing that, I want to say thank you to William Grider, who brought this subject up in the public mind on the Bill Moyers journal about the middle of July. And what Grider did was really interesting and good. He broadened the definition of usury from simply the taking of too much interest to what it really meant to the scholastics who studied and worked on this from 1100 to 1500 AD. And to them, it was an anti-social misuse of the monetary mechanism. Grider went so far as to call it a situation where the financially powerful take advantage of the financially weaker, which is heading in the right direction. Now, we're going to discuss usury on Saturday afternoon. We brought in some specialists on that, people who are writing and thinking on it from religious perspectives. Because essentially it's going to come down to a moral issue. And that is the area that religion is supposed to be involved with, and is trying to be involved with. We've realized for years the great importance of bringing in the religious element, the mainline religions, in terms of demanding monetary justice. We know that the moment we get one important religion asking for this, for monetary justice and monetary reform, it's going to happen very, very quickly. Well, at this very moment, right now, our Congress is under severe attack. They're trying to grab $700 billion from our society. And these perpetrators, they know our Congress, they really do. They understood that the Democratic Congress would react like jellyfish, and they have. But the perpetrators have underestimated the American people. And what's going on, to a certain extent, is that the people are telling their representatives, don't do this, this is no good. They're giving them some backbone at this time. And it's not just the working guys that are doing this. I was shocked to see on the Charlie Rose show a couple of nights ago, former vice chairman of the Federal Reserve System, Alan Blinder. He's a bald fellow, his eye is always twitching. You've seen him interviewed. He's always interviewed supporting whatever the banks are doing. Doesn't matter. He'll support it in the past. He's on the Charlie Rose show, and he described the bailout as an abomination. He was practically using four-letter words. He was at the limit for television broadcasting, which is fascinating. So this is not just the banking system that's trying to do this. It's a more specific gang that is attempting to grab $700 billion. Now, the bad news, because it is a real crisis, whatever the cost, it's real. The bad news is that the $700 billion probably won't work, because you have to reestablish confidence. Now, the White House went on the air yesterday to reestablish confidence. They're better off, I think, staying off the air. You know what I mean?
That's what McCain's doing.
McCain, right? He's down to 15% approval rating, the White House. It's truly remarkable. But that's bad news, because we have a real crisis here that we have to resolve. We have to find a way out of it. Or there will be, the one thing they're right about, there will be tremendous suffering, and we want to avoid that. People have already suffered enough. So there's only one way, I think, for Congress to reestablish confidence. And that is to carefully, not quickly do what they're told to do, but to carefully study and work over a plan in the interest of America. That will be visible. The people are tuned into this. They can see that. Now, that can begin a process of reestablishing confidence in our government. Well, the bad news, there's no easy way out of this through this confidence propaganda. That's the bad news. And that's also the good news, because we're going to have a chance to reform this system for real. We're going to get that opportunity now. This chance comes along not even once in every generation. The last time was 1930s. It was not handled quite right at that point, and you can see a complete description of that in the paper called the Chicago Plan, which is at the back of the room there. Well, here are a couple of the positive things that are going on. In your kit, there is a paper called Greening the Dollar. Greening the dollar is a term that was invented by a friend of mine on the West Coast, George Romero, after the Green Party convinced me to go and speak at their convention in 2007 in Reading, Pennsylvania. Is Ben Kelsis here yet? Not yet. Ben is going to come here. He's the one who got me to do that. And didn't want to go. Thank you. But I did. And so I called George and I said, I'm giving a talk to the Green Party. Probably half the value of the talk will be the title. And George is the greatest title writer in America. And it took him about 3 minutes. He got back and he said, Greening the Dollar. And that's what this is about. This is written by Dee, a little 85-year-old woman. And she's working on truly greening the dollar. Because what happened after the talk there to the Greens, we did a monetary reform plan for the Green Party, for their convention and for their platform. The platform committee adopted our plank, word for word. And that plank is right here. Fits on less than 1 page in that piece called Greening the Dollar. And I would appreciate it if at some time during this conference you read through this whole thing. Because what we did there in about 2/3 of a page was summarize the 16 pages of the American Monetary Act. All the elements are in this, in less than a page. People tell you, well, you got to make this short. Well, it is short here. Short enough to read. Greening the dollar, to reverse the privatization of control over the money issuing process of our money system, to reverse its resulting concentration of wealth and income, place it within a more equitable public system of governmental checks and balances, to end the regular recurrence of severe disruptive banking crises such as the current one. Green Party makes 3 motions because this really, American Monetary Act, it consists of 3 broad motions. First, to nationalize the 12 regional Federal Reserve banks, reconstitute them and the Federal Reserve System's Washington Board under a new monetary control board within the U.S. Treasury. We don't want to abolish the Federal Reserve System because it's a useful institution if it's controlled properly and if it does what is in the interest of the country. And it has information that it's put together since 1913 that is valuable knowledge. We don't want to destroy that. We want to use it properly to help America. But it's got to be in effect. People tell me don't use the word nationalization. It has to be nationalized, placed within the U.S. Treasury. That's one. Second, bank accounting rules will be redefined so that banks no longer have the privilege to multiply their credit, to keep lending more and more credit. We don't nationalize the banks. It's a very important thing. We're nationalizing money, not banking. That's what's come out of the best thinking on monetary reform in America. So part two, in a very elegant way, stops the banks from lending credit. They are allowed to lend money. And part three defines how, one of the ways, the main way, in which new money will be created. If you just do one and two, you'll have deflation, because a growing society requires new money to be added. And if we take away the bank's ability to do that, you're going to have a deflation, or you have to find another way. And what we do is have the government spend new money, not borrow it, just print it if necessary as paper notes, greenbacks, or create it in an account. It's the same thing. Create that money and spend it into circulation on infrastructure. We start with 1.6 trillion that the engineers tell us we need to bring our infrastructure just up to safe levels, not to superb levels, just to safe levels. $1.6 trillion. Very important. We include in infrastructure healthcare, the human infrastructure, healthcare and education. Because you cannot build hardware without intelligent, healthy people. And it's time that our country, we think of America as the most advanced country in the world, but these advantages are offered in most industrial societies today. Free healthcare, education as far as you can take it. What's our problem? Why can't we do this? I mean, you've got the euro going up against the dollar, and you get free healthcare in all the euro countries. Almost all, not the new ones from the east. And you get education benefits. So we can do that. That's what monetary reform can bring us. This has been happening, this happened on July 11th. The platform committee approved this. That's the exact thing that they approved, the platform committee. It's not the same as the whole Green Party. That was on July 11th. It happened in Chicago. We were there at, thank you, Doug. We were there at the convention at the Palmer House. We met their candidates and talked with them about this and explained the historic nature of what that platform committee did. It's never been done before. No political party has ever put that together with all of the elements that you really need to get real monetary reform. Never been done anywhere that I know of. They did it. The Green Party did it. Or the platform committee did it. But that's the Green Party. And while they have a lot of good ideas, they're a bit like the Libertarians. They have a problem getting votes. So I was very excited last night when I turned the computer on and saw what happened. And we'll give you a copy of this too. Before that. All right. We did that with the Greens. Well, the Greens did that. Then I went on the Tom Hartman show. Tom Hartman, you know who he is? Yeah. Air America. He's the leading progressive. And spoke for half an hour at the beginning of the show. At the end of the show, Tom says, we need two major reforms. We need election reform so that our votes count, and we need to nationalize the Federal Reserve System. That went out to 3 million people from the leading progressive talk show host in the country. So a few days later, I called William Grider on the phone, and I told him, Bill, did you hear what Tom did? Told him what Tom did. And it just so happens the next issue of The Nation that comes out, cover story by Bill Grider. He gives us solutions. One of them, he doesn't use the word nationalization, but it's the same thing. assign the Federal Reserve's regulatory role to a new public agency that is visible and politically accountable. Make the Fed a subsidiary agency of the Treasury Department and reform its decision-making on money and credit to restore an equitable balance between competing goals and interests, seeking full employment but also stable money and moderate inflation. These are big things. These are important things that are happening. I think you realize, but not as important as what happened last time. What, you want to know, Dave?
Yes, I'd like to know.
You already know, you were involved in this. I got an email from the Dennis Kucinich campaign. He's running for Congress in Cleveland, has a big race there, and he's working on this huge problem. And Dennis puts forward 16 points here of what to do for the problem, how to solve the crisis. I'm reading through it. Naturally, I'm looking for monetary reform on it, you know. And all these things are good, but there's no monetary reform, and I'm still looking. And he's got 16 items here, and I have to read you item 16. Monetary policy. It is long past time that we looked at the implications of our debt-based monetary system.
Yay! Go on.
The privatization of money created by the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, the bank's fractional reserve system, and our debt-based economic system. We have to look at these things. Unless we have dramatic reform of monetary policy, the entire economic system will continue to accelerate wealth upwards. I'm currently working on drafting legislation for an, quote, American Monetary Act to address these and other issues in order to protect the economic well-being of America. So, yes, now, and then there are we're going to give you a copy of this, but you should go to that website and look at the last buttons underneath the whole thing and maybe click on them. We cannot promote political stuff, but we can promote monetary stuff. So the American Monetary Act that solves both the current crisis can fix the nation's monetary system for the foreseeable future. It's in that brochure, summarized by the Green Party. We can and must enact monetary reforms that reverse these processes attacking our nation. We have to get reforms that put time on the side of justice. This is our strategy. We're not powerful in terms of financial resources or thousands of people. We will get there. So our logic is to achieve the minimum reforms necessary that put time on the side of justice so that things start improving over time instead of getting worse over time as they do now. If we can do that, things will move forward. There will be true progress. We'll be able to do it in a less intense atmosphere of pressure. So the AMI, as you know, it's a publicly supported charity, started in '96 by myself and Dr. Lucienne DeWolf. She'll be here shortly. We continue as long as we get public support to do so. We're always fundraising. Consider that. Our research was first published on March 21st, 2003. It's this book. Science of Money book. They're available at the back. Same day that George Bush attacked Iraq, the research found a grand ongoing struggle to control the money system going back at least to Aristotle's time. We found that the battle is not so much fought with guns as with language, controlling the language and controlling what's called economic thought. And that the main method was to misdefine the nature of money. And by doing that, corrupt groups could seize control of the money system, and that translates over time into control of the society. I think everybody realizes that. The main battle line that we found through history is a division between public control or private control. Private control inevitably led and leads to the system being run for the benefit of the privates in control. And if you apply that to reforms and apply that to ideas, you generally come up with the correct answer or evaluation of a proposal. Very interesting. We found that the attack on government, which today has reached stupendous proportions, just turn on a radio. The attack on government, we found, began with Adam Smith in his efforts to keep the monetary power in England within the private Bank of England. And over again, the society's concept of money, what it considers money, determines whether it's going to be privately controlled or publicly controlled for the common good. For example, if you define money as wealth, gold and silver, who's going to control it? People with the wealth, the people with the gold and silver. They'll not only control their wealth, they'll control the mechanism by which further wealth is concentrated upwards. If you define it as monetized bank credits, which our present system does, then the banking system is going to control it. But we've pointed out time and time again, there's nothing in their background, nothing in their education, their experience, that qualifies them as masters of the universe or in their souls. And what's going on today demonstrates that. Here we've got the wealthiest people in the country demanding more from the rest of us. It's incredible. What kind of brashness does that indicate? Certainly, it's dangerous to have people like that in positions of power within your society, and unhealthy. Could use words like treason, perhaps, would be accurate. We don't have to go that far, because we can just discuss this in a normal way. Methodology is always a key question. Our methodology is to look at the facts to the extent that we can find them. And that means, in the monetary area, that means history, because that's where the monetary facts are found. It takes a generation or two often for monetary systems' effects to become visible. This is very different from most economics, which starts with theory and usually sticks with theory. And you even have economists, for example, from the Austrian school, who say facts cannot disprove my theories. Ludwig von Mises does that, for example. He claims that no facts can disprove his theories. He's operating in some area of Platonic, for example, they say there's no such thing as an actual circle in nature. It can only, because it'll never be a perfect circle, it can only exist as an idea. So these guys are operating as though their ideas, their theories, their economic programs, which affect public policy, they affect starvation, life and death, they're acting as though that they can ignore the results. It's crazy. But that's what they do. So, on page 656 of the book, it took that long, we define and summarize what money is. And I'm going to just summarize from there. Our inheritance from past genius, from Aristotle, money exists not by nature but by law. From Plato, they agreed, by the way, unusual. A money token for purposes of exchange. From the Roman Julius Paulus, the device being officially promulgated, circulated, and obtained its purchasing power, not so much from its substance as from its quantity. From Anglican Bishop Berkeley, after a long darkness, whether the true idea of money as such be not altogether that of a ticket or counter. From Locke and from R. Franklin, they viewed money as a pledge for wealth rather than wealth itself. From Knapp, the German, our test that the money is accepted in payments made to the state offices. We have learned that that is what makes something money or not. It's not what gives the money value. What gives the money value is that people are working in a legal and social framework which is supported and they're creating values for living. But what makes something money is the government. Finally, from Del Mar, we have the best sufficient definition. What's commonly understood as money has always consisted tangibly of a number of pieces of some material marked by public authority and named or understood in the laws or customs. That its palpable characteristic was its mark of authority, its essential characteristic, possession of value, defined by law, and its function, the legal power to pay debts and taxes, the mechanical power to facilitate the exchange of other objects possessing value. We accept all of these definitions and we add the following. Money's essence, apart from whatever is used to signify it, is an abstract social power embodied in law as an unconditional means of payment. You would call it a societal concept of money, a constitutional concept, or as I'm describing it now with economists, it's an Aristotelian concept of money. Money is a supremely moral issue because the money system is society's greatest dispenser of justice or injustice, whether it gives privileges to some and disadvantages to others. And we take our cue from Anglican Archbishop William Temple, who in 1942, while bombs were dropping on England, hundreds of thousands dying in the war, devastation all around. He gave a speech in which, in typical English understatement, he called for the nationalization of the Bank of England. And the phrase that he used, we take our cue from him. One of the phrases, this is described in some detail in the book, it's a brilliant statement that he made, one of the most accurate you'll find anywhere. He had to have help to be able to write that. Quote, what should be the servant has become the master. First thing the Brits did, 1946 or 7, they nationalized the Bank of England. And it was at that point that they got their health care. At that point, we hear that about half the money was created by the government, English government, and about half was in the banking system. They were able to get their great social programs as a result of that. But they didn't go far enough. That's the first step of our program. Nationalize, put the central bank into the government, as it is all around the world. But they didn't take the second step that we take, and that is to stop the banks from creating new money. So over time, between 46 and today, in England, the banks create now 97% of the Brit money. The government creates 3%. It's about the same as it is here, the coins and the notes. So part 2, we learned from that nationalization failure the need to end fractional reserve banking. Absolute need to do that. Some people have said, well, let's just do half. Let's just have half the money created by the banks and half by the government. That's like allowing half a murder. There's a moral issue involved here. It undercuts the argument to allow it to continue. Now, okay, but first I've got to make some acknowledgments here. The co-founder of the Institute's not here just yet. She called, her plane has arrived, and she'll be here in a while. That's Lucienne DeWolf. And her support and encouragement over the years made the Institute possible, made the book and the research possible. None of that would have happened otherwise. For the conference here, I have to thank Robert Petit, Doug in the back there, Richard and Micah, Dan Sullivan, who came in. All these people came in early to help us with the logistics of setting this up, including making sure that this thing worked, because that wasn't easy. And especially, I want to thank Jamie Walton here. Jamie, you want to stand up? Most of you have talked with Jamie over the past 3 months. He's been on the phone with almost everybody here, and he'll tell you about that. He's giving you a talk a bit later, and he'll give his impressions of America and what it takes to hold a monetary reform conference. Okay, ground rules: just remain reasonably polite, even if discussion gets intense. We're going to try to keep all the speakers on schedule and into question periods. Please keep the questions on the speaker's subject, and do try to make sure that they're questions and to the point. We go through a long process here to get these speakers in front of you, and take advantage of them while they're here. Okay, we'll take a few questions, and then Bob Petit will start the next session, which is on Keynes and militarism.